Sleep, sleep, even when I'm walking in my sleep.
Welcome back to the Something in the Wilderness podcast. My name's Steve, and each episode of the show, we select a different Andrew McMahon song to discuss. Recently, we've dug into something corporate and into Jack's Mannequin track, so today, we're going to come back to the modern era with a wilderness track. Even though I know there's been a lot of hype around the upcoming Something corporate shows, I did want to focus in on some of the more modern material. So I invited a guest to join me today to help break this one down. Betsy reached out to me a while back, which I always appreciate, and we finally found a time to get connected. Thanks for jumping on the show, Betsy. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. I'm so excited.
Yeah, can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Betsy and I live in Pittsburgh. I'm originally from Virginia though, but I loved Andrew since high school. So that's what, way back into like 2003 at least.
Right. How did you initially get into Andrew's music anyway?
I think it was through a friend. She had me listen to a whole bunch of different genres and stuff. But when she showed me Andrew, I was like, I really liked it. I just connected with it and I just love his harmonies. That's what always gets me. So this song is like perfect for that.
You got in on the Something corporate era. Was there like a specific song or album that hooked you in that you remember that when you heard it, you were like, yeah, this is for me?
Definitely Leaving Through the Window was obviously the main, like Woke Up in the Car. Obviously, that's such a banger. But I also really love North, which I know is also your favorite.
Mm-hmm.
I love like Being in the Moon, She Paints Me
Yeah.
Blue. Like I
Yeah.
love those songs. Oh my God, they're so good. But and then I actually didn't get into Jack's Mannequin until a little bit later. I heard it on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
I heard Dark Blue on the radio, and it was like one of those. Oh, it's after 9 o'clock. They'll play like unknown like songs, and
Right.
so that's when I first heard Dark Blue. So I was like, oh, I really like this. Then I found out, oh, that's Andrew McMahon.
Same guy.
That's the same guy.
I still remember that moment I found that out with Everything in Transit. I was like, that's the same guy.
Yeah, I had no idea. And then, but I actually didn't really get into the Jack Mannequin era, like I said, until
Mhm.
later. So I
Okay.
kind of like skipped it. So yes, I heard that song, but then I kind of skipped it. And then I got back into him when he did his single. So like King and Moon, that whole CD.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I'm back in it. And so I actually
Yeah.
went back. And so everything in transit, I was like, why did I skip this? This is an amazing
Hmm.
CD. So
Definitely.
I love it.
Yeah, that's pretty unique that you I think the last guest I had on, if I'm not mistaken, had a similar story where she was really into it up to a certain point and then she took a break and then came back around and she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm still into this. This is still my guy." So,
I think that was my emo era.
yeah, we'll be talking more about Something corporate as time goes on, but let's let's do it right now. Let's fan out a little bit about the Something corporate announcement. So, recently they announced a bunch of tour dates. We don't know if that's all of them, but we know they've announced a bunch. Are you going to any of the shows?
I'm going to go to the Four Chord Festival in Pittsburgh, and I'm so excited.
Oh yeah, I will be there. So look for me again. I know we met real briefly last year at Four Chord.
Yes,
Hopefully we'll see each other again there.
yes, please.
Yeah, there are several people who have told several other fans that I know that have said they're going. So I'm looking forward to kind of let's definitely communicate about that. Are you looking forward to seeing any of the other bands on the list?
I'm going to go both days. So
Okay.
I just decided. I was like, I'm going.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot. I think there's what Census Fail and A Day to
Uh-huh.
Remember, which I don't know if that's the first or second day.
Day to Remember is headlining the first day. I'll miss them. I'm not real familiar with their music. I can't remember which day Census Fail. I think Census Fail's day one.
Okay. I don't remember if that was day 1 or 2.
All American Rejects is day two.
Oh,
Reliant
wow.
K.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The last time I saw All American Rejects, it was back in the Warped Tour when I was like
Mhm.
16.
I saw them, I think, in 2005, so it probably would have been their Move Along album tour. I remember that I liked it, but I
Yes.
couldn't tell you a single thing about the show. It's one of those that, like, it's just blanked out in my memory. I went to so many shows back then, way more than I do now. And so some of those shows were just kind of lost to time. Like, I'm sure I enjoyed it. I think I did, but I don't know. So I'll be glad to see them again, like, actually remember it this time, maybe. I don't know. I'm sure I remembered it back then, but I don't have good concert memory from like 20 years ago.
Yeah, I just remember Tyson being like 10 feet away from me when he was
Hmm.
shirtless. And so that was obviously a highlight when I was 16 years old.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get that treat again
Oh,
on
who
in
knows?
June. So yeah, I don't know if he does that anymore, but
Yeah, I was
maybe.
about to say, who does that anymore?
Yeah, I've gone to Four Chord the last 2 years, despite the tornado last year. I had
So mad.
such an amazing, yeah, that part sucked, but I had such an amazing experience while there were actually bands on stage and while there was no severe weather, that I was like, I think I'm going to go to this thing every year now because 2 years running and I've liked everything I've seen on stage. I'm hoping for the same this year, but again, I only decided to go to day two. I'll be honest, I was kind of anticipating a Cleveland SoCo date on the night
Mm.
before, and I
Oh,
bet
okay.
wrong on that. So that's why I only bought day two tickets. So now I'm like, oh, okay, now I have no Saturday plans, but that's cool. So I'll just come to Pittsburgh for a day.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I'm going to Cleveland and Detroit, so I'll have plenty of SoCo on my list
Oh,
this
wow.
year. But that'll be the first time this year that I see them, and I looked at the set times from last year on how Four Chord organizes, and they've been consistent for 2 years. So I think something corporate will get a full hour, like an hour 5 minutes.
Oh, hell
So
yeah. All right.
yeah, I think so. So I'm looking forward to that. But now I just got to figure out how to get from the something corporate stage over to the All American Reject stage afterwards. So that'll be a June problem. So
I was about to say, well, last year was actually fine because it was like one after the other. So,
I like the way they organize it.
yeah, me too. Like, it's better than any festival that I've been to. So,
That I think that's what I like about it because I'm not a huge fest person, but that one's very well done. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, for the same experience at the new venue. I really liked the ballpark. Actually, some people
so
didn't, I
did
guess, but
I. I liked it.
it was so wide open and easy to move around. Oh, I loved it. So all right, well, let's get to the song we're going to talk about here. So I have to admit, it took me some time to get into this song that we're going to talk about. I've said it on the show before about this particular album we're going to speak about. I wasn't a fan initially of all the electronic stuff going on. It was definitely more of a pop sound, and I don't think I was ready for that at the time from Andrew for whatever reason. I'll be honest, 10, 11 years ago, I wasn't nearly as open to pop music. When this hit less than 10 years ago, I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And it took me a while to get into it and kind of find Andrew in the mix, if you will. Although that sounds kind of weird to say out loud, but it was just surprising to hear a song like this from Andrew McMahon at the time, I guess. So I don't remember hearing this song particularly. Sometimes I ask people, do you remember when you first heard the song? And honestly, usually my answer is no. I don't remember when I first heard the song. And for this one, it's the same. I don't remember when I first heard it, but I remember first hearing the album. And I think of this song as like in that middle of the album. It kind of went along to me with Dead Man's Dollar and Island Radio and Shot Out of a Cannon and kind of others in that vein. But the song we're talking about today is Walking on a Dream. No, the song, there we go. The song we're talking about today is Walking in My Sleep. Not to be confused with Walking on a Dream, which is a cover song Andrew McMahon did not long out, right around that same time, actually,
Oh.
by Empire of the Sun. So, which I will talk about in a different episode. But I don't ever get these two songs, Walking in My Sleep and Walking on a Dream, confused. But I get the names confused, and that was like perfect evidence of it. Like I didn't intend to do that at all, but I even had it in my notes that these are the two that I get confused, and then I went ahead and said it. But today, to be clear, we are talking about Walking in My Sleep from Zombies on Broadway. The album was released on February 10th, 2017. It was track 8. Now, Betsy, did you know that the song was initially released as a single before the album came out?
No idea. No.
No, I didn't
Because
either.
I didn't even hear it outside of the album until I bought the album. And so when
Hmm.
I listened to the whole thing, I don't know, I just feel like his whole CD just flowed. So like I really enjoyed
Hmm.
it. And I like pop music, so I'm not like a stranger to it. But
Yeah, so you were more open to this sound when you heard it. It wasn't
yeah,
like, oh my gosh, the Something Corporate guy is making a pop album. It was like,
no,
oh, this fits right into my wheelhouse.
it kind of just fits with his voice, honestly.
Hmm.
To me, it makes sense.
Okay, glad you feel that way. And I came around eventually, but when I heard it, it was just jarring to me with the sound, with all this production going on, where I was like, where's the piano? Where's the guitar? Again, I wasn't as open minded in 2017, and especially a couple years prior to that, than I eventually was. And now I'm like, especially now that I have young daughters, and they
Mhm.
introduce me to pop music. In turn, I like to find stuff to introduce them to. Sometimes they bite on it, sometimes not so much. So
Yeah, I do that with my nieces and nephews. It doesn't
yeah.
always land, but
No, exactly. Yeah. So we are going on a vacation in a couple of weeks. We did a family road trip playlist, which we've done before. All four members of the family get to pick a certain amount of songs and put them on the same playlist.
that's amazing.
Yeah, I haven't looked at anybody else's picks because I wanted to keep it independent, keep my choices independent of theirs.
Mhm.
And so I'm trying to find music that I enjoy, but I also think they might enjoy.
Mhm.
And honestly, that's how I've picked the Andrew songs that I've put on playlists in the past. Obviously, it's not going to be all Andrew for the obvious reason. So, where was I? So, yeah, this was a single that came out on December 16th, 2016, but didn't chart at all. So, it doesn't, to me, feel like a single, but it was technically released on Spotify and probably their streaming services, and it had a lyric video, which I'll come back to later. Do you remember first connecting with this song? Like, I know we talked about when we first heard the album all the way through, and I think we had similar experiences in that way with the song and how we first heard it. But do you remember specifically thinking about the song and being like, hey, I like that one?
I always like a good clapping song. So something that I could clap along to is always great.
Oh, definitely during the bridge. Yeah.
The very first thing that you hear is his harmonies. Forget
Hmm.
about it. I love it so
Yeah.
much.
And it's interesting because there's so many people singing. I'm going to read a list in a little bit here of all the people that are apparently singing on this track. There's a lot. Like, it's like, wow, they're really harmonizing here. But yeah,
Yeah,
their voices sound great.
it's beautiful.
I think I already know the answer, but like, what my initial question was, what were your thoughts on this new sound? So we heard Something Corporate, we heard Jack's Mannequin, we heard that first Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness album, but Zombies was different.
Zombies was different for sure. He was just trying something new, like any other artist does.
Yeah. And I've come to appreciate that more in recent years than I was able to. Like I
Yeah.
said, 7 years ago. Yeah, it was 7 years ago it came out. So almost exactly, actually.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah,
Nice.
it came out February 10th, and we're talking about this on what, early March. So
Yeah. Okay. It's cool.
it sounds wild to say. I cannot believe this was 7 years. It feels like this is a new album, right?
Yeah, totally. It came out
Yeah.
last year.
So I would also say that we heard more of this new sound, Zombies on Broadway, on the latest album, Tilt to the Wind No More. In fact, I'd say of the Wilderness era, the two albums to me that are most comparable in terms of sound and production are Tilt to the Wind No More and Zombies on Broadway. So I'd just be curious as to what listeners think about that statement, because I don't know if that rings true for everybody, but I do know when I started to hear the Tilt to the Wind No More songs, it was like, oh, so this is going to be more like Zombies on Broadway than Upside Down
Oh.
Flowers and then self-titled. So I gotta say, this song pick, Betsy, was a little bit unique for kind of the way it came out, because you said, oh, I'm interested in talking about any song, like just let's talk about any song, and that's different because most people are like, I have a very specific song that I want to come on the podcast to discuss, or like, here's three that I'd be willing to discuss, and you were like, well, I'll just talk about whatever you want,
Whatever.
and I was like, so I think did I pick this one?
You did. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really unique. Tell me about that. Like what's that process about? Like, you were just willing to come on and talk about any song that I picked. That's awesome.
Well, first off, let me just say, you already talked about all my other favorite songs. So
Okay.
I was just like, well, there's
Fair.
nothing that I could contribute to those because I mean, you already talked about those episodes. So, which is fine.
Hmm.
Walking in my sleep, when you suggested that, I was like, actually, this works because it has the harmonies that I love and that has the acoustic feeling. It has, a little bit of everything in it
Hmm.
that I like zombies on Broadway. Like I know that's probably a controversial thing to say in the Andrew
Oh,
world, but like
I know a
I
lot of
love
fans
it.
who love it. Yeah, there's a contingent of the fan base that absolutely love this album. It's not my favorite, but I do enjoy it. So, but
Yeah, I
there's
mean,
definitely other people like you that other fans like you that love this album though.
right. I mean, it took me a few tries just to get used to it, but once I got used to it, I was like, actually, this is growing on me. Like Island Radio, I didn't like that at first, but
Hmm.
like once I like listened to it a few more times, I was like, actually, I could get behind this.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. I love Zombies on Broadway, but yeah, Upside Down Flowers is not my favorite. I'm so sorry, but that's not my
Yeah, no, it's a
favorite.
whole different it's a very
But
different vibe. There's a
it
couple of
is.
upbeat songs on that album, but a lot of it's more ballady
It
and
is.
piano ballads and slower songs, and not everybody's up for that. So a whole album of that. So understandably. Yeah, where this song really popped for me, I remember when it did. And it's the same with Island Radio and Dead Man's Dollar. It was at Bunbury Music Festival, and I heard these songs live for the first time, and that's what brought them to life. And I was like, oh, I get it now. I get the energy. I get the vibe he's going for.
Yeah.
I see the full live band playing it, which made the difference for me, that
Okay.
it didn't feel like a production in a studio anymore. And now I can go back to that produced album version and I can be like, yeah, but I hear it. I hear all the stuff now. I hear the excitement, the energy, and the vibe on the album version now that I've seen it live. That's where it came to life for me. The track was produced by Derek Furman and Greg Wattenberg and recorded at Arcade Studios in New York City. It was mixed by John Sinclair. Of course, we have Andrew that plays piano and keyboards, and then we have guitars, programming, and background vocals by Furman and Wattenberg, who are the producers. Something I want to point out here, since we've been talking a lot about Something Corporate and Jack's Mannequin, is that I always equate the Wilderness era to basically Andrew McMahon and a bunch of other people.
Yeah.
So like Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness to me means Andrew and his friends, or Andrew and whomever he feels like working with at that time, or Andrew and the songwriters that he chose or the producers that he chose for that album, or the players that he chose to play on stage with. That's what the Wilderness means to me. So I think once I accepted that, albums like Zombies on Broadway and Tilt at the Wind No More, and even Upside Down Flowers, which is like Andrew and Butch Walker, basically. All of that made more sense once I accepted that fact many years ago. It was like, yeah, this is just Andrew and his friends, which is, I think, is a great thing. But I think that's what makes this a solo project versus a band project, is that it's whomever he's working with at that time. What are your thoughts on that?
So I just want to piggyback on what you just said about the wilderness.
Hmm.
That's kind of like what we saw the last tour. That was all about friends and whoever he wanted to play with, and he included, fans. And but yeah, so that was the last time I saw Andrew was in December.
Speaking of which, speaking of that whole idea of like Andrew and his friends, in the liner notes, if you've never looked at them, it lists these additional background vocalists with a bunch of people. In fact, I found it hard to believe that there's so many people singing on this track, and I don't know who most of them are. So I'm just gonna rattle their names off: Jason Bell, Jordan Miller, Ivory Lane. I have heard of her. Carrie Brown, Jillian Durkee, Dana Wise, and Meredith Strang. I don't know, 6, 7 people, however many that was, plus the producers, plus Andrew. They were all singing on this track, and I assume that it's the part where they sing "Sleep." I
Yeah.
assume that's when they're all singing together, harmonizing. So
Okay.
that's why it sounds so like perfect.
I was like, oh,
Um,
this sounds so good because I was like, there's no way it's just what Mikey and Zach Clark maybe.
yeah,
I'm
it
like, that's
technically
it.
wasn't them this time, although
Right.
they do it live.
Right.
But yeah, it was all those other people this time. It was recorded sometime in the summer of 2016, from what I found. In an interview I talked about previously on the show, Andrew talks a lot about how New York influenced this album. So, Betsy, have you ever been to New York City before?
When I was like 18 or 19 years old. It was
Okay.
a real long time ago, like 20 years ago.
It's been a little bit for me too. Do you think this album feels like New York City, represents New York City? Like, do you have any opinions on that?
I was about to say, from what I remember, like kind of, because
Uh huh.
everything's really busy. You hear, especially at the beginning of the album, you hear the cars rushing, you hear the beeping, you hear, the train.
Hmm.
stuff like that. So everything that you think of New York initially, that's in the album.
This song to me, when it gets going, I guess the chorus mainly, which we'll talk more about the sound as we go on, but like it feels busy. It feels like busy,
Yes.
and maybe the verses are the nighttime and the chorus is the daytime. I don't know. So that's just kind of the way I
I
think.
didn't think about it like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just something that occurs to me sometimes. I remember being in Chicago just over a year ago, and I heard this song. I was actually there for the Andrew McMahon Dear Jack benefit, November of
Oh,
2022.
okay.
So we were listening to a lot of Andrew that weekend.
Sure.
And I remember hearing this song, and I thought, yeah, this does sound like a big city feel, like a tall buildings, people rushing around, lots of cars and trains and things like that. So
Great. I love Chicago.
yeah, Chicago.
It's great.
I love Chicago more than I love New York. I will say that. Hot take that may offend some people
You
that
know what?
listen.
I've been to Chicago like 3 times, and I only been to New York once. So
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
that says something.
I've been to them about the same amount of times, as a handful of times, and Chicago's just a little bit more relaxed for me, which is what I need. I like big
Cool.
cities, but New
Yeah.
York's very busy. So, according to Setlist FM, this song's been played live 131 times,
Oh my God.
which is a lot. Yeah. It looks like it was played consistently through the Zombies on Broadway tour, but also if you look at set lists, it was played a lot during the Upside Down Flowers tour, which really surprised me. Does that surprise you?
I think I saw him during that time.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
no.
he played it at some of them, not all, but
Yeah.
I was surprised to see that because I don't think of this as like one of his crowd favorites or one of his like big hits, one like a high in demand song. But that's a lot to play live. But the most recent time it's been played was last spring. So he played a round of shows almost a year ago now, May 2023, and he played it at two of the shows actually. So it's not like out of the rotation at this point. It's still being played to the modern era.
Huh.
I did find two articles where Andrew was asked what his favorite songs were from Zombies on Broadway.
Okay.
In fact, in 2017, the Detroit News asked him right before he came to town with the Zombies tour that year, and he listed two songs. Now, one of them was obviously Walking in My Sleep. It was when they asked him, and the album was brand new,
Mhm.
what are your favorite songs off the new album? He said, Walking in My Sleep. I'm going to put you on the spot, Betsy.
Oh God. Okay.
Take your best guess at what the other song that he named was, or even name a couple. It doesn't matter. What other song on the album do you think was his favorite besides Walking in My Sleep?
Island Radio.
I would have thought that too.
Uh,
That wasn't it.
no.
That seems to make sense because he was playing it like every single show.
I was about to say he looks like he's having so much fun every time he performs it, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, that's so much fun because he's like, his spaghetti arms,
Yeah.
everywhere, you know.
He's
But
dancing. The blow up things were dancing back then, and
or
he
Fire
gets out in the
Escape.
crowd. Yeah, you'd think it was Fire Escape.
I love that song.
The answer is really tough. The
What is
song
it?
he said was Love in Great Buildings.
Really?
Yeah, as his other favorite song, which I guess if you look at it from the standpoint where in an interview from a journalist and your album's new and you're promoting it, he probably picked one that's like an upbeat concert song.
Sure.
And then he picked one that's like a more ballady songwriter, singer-songwriter type of thing.
That makes sense.
That's my best guess. I'm not saying he was being strategic. I'm just saying like maybe he was just like looking at both ends of the spectrum, if you will, of the album. I don't know. I feel like those are kind of odd choices.
They are odd.
Yeah, looking back, because like yeah, we think Fire Escape, we think Island Radio because those are those are like the crowd
Those are
pleasers.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah, those are the ones that we all know that we've heard like over and over in concert. But that's what he said. Again, this was 7 years ago. Take it for what it is. But
But if we ask him now, like, would it
yeah,
change?
I do wonder. I will try to add that to the mental list that I always forget when I actually get to talk to Andrew. I never remember any of the questions
Oh, same.
that I want to ask him, so I blank out. Even like he does Camp Wilderness Zooms, and sometimes I get a chance to ask him questions, and I'm always like, what do I ask him? Like I'll think about it during the day. Like if I get a chance, what do I ask him? I don't know what to ask him. Like
You should just keep a running list
I
somewhere.
know other people have said that too, and it's like I never think I should write that down.
Your notes app, go do
Yeah,
it.
notes app.
That way you'll always have it on your phone.
And I'm
Yeah,
going to
you
literally
go
put
for
that in
it.
my phone. because I irritate myself with this. I'm like, why do I never? I think nowadays he'd say Fire Escape because
I love Fire Escape.
he likes crowd pleasers. He likes to get up there and he likes the reaction from fans, understandably. Funny enough, I asked, so when I covered Love in Great Buildings, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago now, it's been a while, with this guest named Noah, and I asked him the same question, but reversed. I was like, Love in Great Buildings was one of the songs that he listed as favorite. What was the other one? And I swear to you, Noah got it. Like, you could go back and listen. He got it on the first try. He was like,
Oh,
Walking in
nice.
My Sleep. And I was like, how did you know that? Like, I would have never, ever give me 8 guesses, and I probably wouldn't have come up
You
with that
still
track.
wouldn't hit it.
Yeah. I don't know. He was like, oh, it's because it's a good track. And I was like, yeah,
It
I
is a
know,
good
but like,
track.
yeah. But anyway, when Chorus FM asked Andrew more specifically which song he was looking forward to playing in concert, he did answer Walking in My Sleep, actually. So again, a different interview, and he was saying it again. But this was all like the beginning of the album cycle. But that probably explains why it was played so much in concert for that tour. I think you mentioned it earlier. Have you seen this song perform live?
I think I have at least once or twice,
Mm-hmm.
but I've only seen him like 7 times.
Andrew McGinn in the Wilderness. So it's likely that you've seen him, that you've seen this song.
I'm pretty sure I did. I feel like around 2019, 2021, I feel like he
Mm-hmm.
he did that.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I didn't recall seeing this one live when I was preparing for this episode, but I looked back at my Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness concert history, and it turns out I've literally seen it 5 times performed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know if that bodes well for like my connection to the song because that means I didn't remember it very well, apparently. So I'm going to include a live performance from Austin City Limits in the show notes for everybody to watch. That's from 2017. I thought that was a pretty good representation of what I probably saw in the 2018 Bunbury. So I remember seeing like basically almost the entire Zombies on Broadway album at Bunbury. He played for like 45, 50 minutes, and he played a lot of Zombies. And that's where I remember, like, again, connecting to the album as a whole, including the song. But I also saw him play it, apparently, according to Setlist FM, on the Upside Down Flowers tour in 2019, at both socially distanced outdoor pod shows in Pontiac, Michigan in 2021, and then on the Rock Boat one time 2 years ago on 11/11. So, yeah,
Okay.
I would agree. It's like a commonly played song by Andrew at these shows, but apparently I don't have much memory of this specific song. I don't know why.
So I just looked at 2019. So apparently I've only seen it once. And
Hmm.
that was in 2019. That was with Floor and Grisfolk.
Oh, yep, I saw that. That's a show I saw, but in Columbus. Where did you see it in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I saw it Stage AE in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Says February 24th, 2019.
Yeah, that was the same week. I think it was like February. I don't know. It was the
I was
same
about to
week.
say Ohio and Pittsburgh are always like the same week. So
I believe it. Yep.
sounds about right.
Yeah, I don't see too many shows in Pittsburgh. I'd like to see more. It's about a 3-hour drive.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned earlier, this album was definitely an album of collaborations. So there were only 2 songs on Zombies on Broadway that were solely written by Andrew, and this was not one of them. Most of the songs on this album were written between August 2015 and April 2016. The song itself, Walking in My Sleep, was co-written by Andrew McMahon along with Dan Nigro from the band As Tall as Lions, who I had never heard of before I did the research here, and Morgan Kibbe from the band M83. I've heard of M83, but I don't know any of their work.
Me neither.
Have you ever heard the name Dan Nigro before?
No.
So everybody should know his name, and we don't even know it. Here's
Okay.
why. You like pop music, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Dan has written or co-written just about every song that Olivia Rodrigo has ever released.
Oh, nice.
He writes the songs
Okay.
or co-writes them. So I'm not sure how he landed that job, but good for you, Dan. And that was a pun. I didn't think you'd pick up on that, but you got it like right away. Like, sorry, I'm a
I
dad.
love puns. No, I love
I
puns.
tell dad jokes. Yeah,
I also love dad jokes. So you can ask my boyfriend.
I'm so impressed you picked up on that. Like, I was like looking at my notes. I'm like, good for you, Dan, and they like you got it immediately.
It's like condescending almost.
Yeah.
Good for you.
So he's also produced most of her songs. He won a Grammy for her first album and was nominated for her second album this past year. And you can probably, most people listening and you could probably guess the album they lost to.
Taylor Swift.
Yeah, it has to be Taylor Swift, right?
It
Like,
has to. Who
yeah, it
else?
was. Yeah, she dominated. So
Is there any
but
other artist?
yeah, I know. It's just you hear her name so much. But yeah, Taylor Swift's Midnights actually won that Grammy that Dan and Olivia were nominated for. But the other co-writer on Walking in My Sleep is Morgan Kibbe, who has a pretty good resume herself. She's written on the last 3 Panic at the Disco albums.
Oh
Are
wow.
you a Panic fan?
Yes, I love Panic.
He leaned really into the pop side, and
Right.
that's really where this person came in to write
Oh,
with them.
okay. So I did like them from the beginning, which was in high school,
Yeah.
because that was the same era as Sonic Corporate. Yeah, I have been a fan, but again, I like skipped some
Hmm.
albums in between. But I think I got back into it when Death of a Bachelor came.
Yeah, that's a good album.
I love that album. Oh my God, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
One of the times I saw Panic, actually the only time I've seen Panic live,
Was it with Andrew McMahon in
it
Pittsburgh?
was
Because I was there
no,
too.
no, it was a festival in in the Detroit area of Michigan, and
Oh,
the lineup was Andrew, Weezer, and
yes.
Panic, and it was a
Yeah,
festival.
that's the same
Okay, you
thing.
saw the
Yeah.
same one?
Yeah, in
Okay, that
Pittsburgh.
was a
Yeah.
great show.
I know.
Like knocked me out of my chair. Good.
It was amazing. And I was like, I am not missing this because that's actually when I first moved up here.
Hmm.
And so I was like, I'm going to this concert. And my brother in law went with me. And Andrew McMahon came on the Panic. And then after Panic, half the crowd disappeared. And I was like, where did everyone go? It was a bunch of teeny boppers for Panic. And they left before Weezer. And I was like, why are you leaving before Weezer? I don't get it.
Unbelievable.
I was
Yeah,
like, Weezer is
that's
amazing.
disrespectful. Yeah,
I know. And I was like,
yeah.
well, it's fine because we got like a closer. But anyways,
I know Weezer hadn't done Africa yet, so sorry to the younger people.
I saw in Pittsburgh again with Fall Out Boy and Green Day. So
Oh my! I
they,
so wanted to go to that.
it was so good. The rain was actually pouring and they sang it while it was pouring down in Pittsburgh. And it was a magical moment.
The rains down in Pittsburgh.
It was so good.
Oh, poetic.
I know.
Very cool. In addition to Panic at the Disco, this Morgan Kibbe's also written with Lady Gaga and Harry Styles. It always strikes me as so cool that Andrew's written songs with these people who have written with like these such high profile artists, like the biggest artists in the planet on the planet. He's like 2 degrees away from some of the most famous people on earth right now.
True.
So I have a quote from Andrew that he gave with melodic.net. It's a lengthy one, so sit tight. But I didn't want to paraphrase such a detailed description of what he said about this song. So I'm going to go ahead and read it in Andrew's own words. This song started out in my notebook as a series of vignettes. They were all scenes from a life lived on the road. There's something that happens to a person after being gone for a great length from the place they call home. I'm someone who craves constant motion, but once plane rides and hotel nights accumulate, there is a sense that the world has shifted in some imperceivable way, that maybe the people you love and the things that you hope are waiting for you back home have all moved on in your absence. It was one of these lengthy missions that the title of the song found its way from my pen to the page. I think the beauty of the lyric is that even in its prescribed sense of alienation, there is hope. A sense that no matter how far you get, that there is someone, some place worth returning to. So I'm going to link that quote in the show notes, so I know that was a lot, in case anybody wants to read the whole thing. Betsy, what are your thoughts on that quote?
It's so sweet. I mean, just like the song, it's just so sweet if you just listen to the lyrics. I mean, yeah, you're just going back to someone that you love. And I like that. It's just so simple, obviously. He writes what he knows and he's obviously head over heels with Kelly. So
Pertaining to what you're saying, exactly, like there were things that I didn't pick up from the lyrics until I read that quote. And I was like, oh, that's what the song's about. Okay,
right.
I get this now. And it means more to me now because of that, what he said about it. So,
Yeah, I'm the same way because I
mhm.
had no idea what the song meant either. because
Hmm.
I was like, oh yeah, I used to sleepwalk too.
Yeah.
It's not like that at all. It's
Hmm.
just like I'll see you. It doesn't matter what time of day. I can do it in my sleep. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
It sounds like the title came to him. It sounds like the title took a while for him to come up with. That's the main line of the song. So it makes me wonder if he kind of built the song around that, or if it was the opposite, and he like had these lyrics, and he was like, "What do I put in the middle?" And he was like, "Oh, it's about walking in my sleep." That stuff fascinates me. But yeah, it's about missing home, like you said. It's about being on the road. So that seems to be a theme throughout Andrew's music. I mean, we all know Dead Man's Dollar, and we all know other songs that he's written about the problems with being away from home and missing things that are going on. So, not surprising themes for any touring musician. So, I think we hear that in a lot of our favorite songs. You moved from Virginia to Pittsburgh,
Mm-hmm.
and so you know what it's like to leave home,
Yeah.
like permanently, right? Because I've done the same thing. I have moved away, far away from my family to other places, but also where I live now is not where I grew up. So, can you relate to some of these themes in that way? Picking up and whether it was for a job or a relationship or whatever it was, can you relate to some of those themes of like, I'm going somewhere else away from everyone and everything I know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But I think it was more of I'm not really homesick. It's just more of one, I have to get out here because this place is boring. And
Mm-hmm.
two, it's more of like I can't find a job for the life of me, so I
Mm-hmm.
had to move. So
Yeah.
that was like the main reason for me moving. But I moved up here when I was 27 and I just turned 36. So it's already been 9 years since
Yeah.
I've been up here. So I think Pittsburgh is treating me pretty well.
That's awesome. Is it weird to go back home, quote unquote, like to the place you grew up? See, for me, like when I go back to the Detroit area, things change, but things also stay the same. Some things stay the same. So it's like
Yeah,
this weird dichotomy that
right,
it's like when I go back home, it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't expect that so much to change while, in the months or years I've been gone.
right.
But then, like, there's also things that are, yeah, that's not that much different.
Right. It's like, well, I don't really miss it here. But at the same time, when I do go home, I do notice there's a lot of things that are different. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. But I
Hmm.
mean, it's a growing city, basically. So it
Yeah.
started off real small, but now it's like huge now. So, I mean,
Oh,
there's,
really?
I'm from Fredericksburg, Virginia. So
Oh, yeah. I'm familiar.
a lot of people don't know what that is. Or I'll say Spotsylvania. They're like, what? And I'm like, Fredericksburg. They're like, yeah, I'm like right next door.
Hmm.
It's known for like their historic like battlefields. And so I
Yep.
used to live down the road from some battlefields. But yeah, like it is nice to go back home, but I feel like it's nicer to visit because then that way I don't feel like I'm missing as much when I come
Hmm.
back here to Pittsburgh because I'm like, well, I have everything that I need in Pittsburgh. Does that make
So,
sense?
yeah. So
Yeah,
Pittsburgh is home now to you.
it is. Yeah.
See, I've lived in the same house for over a decade. Yeah, 12 years. And I also lived in Maryland prior to that for 5 years, 4 years. But for some reason, Detroit area is still in a way home. I mean, I was there for probably similar, like mid 20s is when I left.
Yeah.
And I left for work exactly the same way you're talking about. There was no jobs in Michigan in my
Yeah.
field. So I had to go somewhere else, and that happened to be Maryland.
Yeah. But yeah, like I definitely connect with Andrew on traveling and like going on the open road, but like trying to find home. And
Mm-hmm.
he has such a comforting thing about his words.
I love how relatable his lyrics are, and I can find something in almost every single song. And again, what I read from him that actually helped me connect more to the song than prior to that because I was like, oh yeah, I can relate to like looking back at home, being like, yeah, I'm away from home, but sometimes I go back there. Like in my case, and probably in yours, like maybe more for holidays or special occasions, but still, like it's like the people you think of back home. But it's an interesting concept. So let's talk about the sound of the song. We touched on this a little bit already, but I'm going to call it out. So the song starts with this. I think it's a cappella
Yeah.
of them singing "Sleep," right? And
Yeah.
and what do you think about that?
Oh, I love it. I love it so much. So if you put it on shuffle, for example, and
Hmm.
this immediately comes on, I get goosebumps immediately because
Okay.
it's like one of those. I just love acapella. Like it's so good. When a harmony is done right, you know the difference. It's so beautiful. I love it.
They did a great job with that part of it.
It's a statement to open piece.
It's a statement. I like the way you put that. It's definitely a statement. Yeah, I assume that's where we're hearing all those additional backing vocals is on the sleep part. But it's so unique, like compared to anything else on the album or really anything probably he's ever done. That piece is unique, in my
Yeah.
opinion. I don't
Yeah.
think he does a cappella too much with
He doesn't.
harmonizing with other people.
I kind of wish he
So
does. It's so
yeah,
cool.
again, I don't think we heard that anywhere else on his albums, but I might be wrong on that. Do you think this is a happy sounding song or a sad sounding song?
I think it's a celebrating type song. Like it is happy.
Hmm.
It gets you moving. It's a clapping song. It's
Hmm.
you're excited about it. Like you said about home.
Hmm.
Yes, like it's nice to go back there, but I'm always going to be with the people that I love, you
Hmm.
know.
I think the verses at times could lead someone to believe this is a sad song, but when you get to the chorus and the bridge and the outro, you realize, oh no, it's like you said, it's a celebratory song. It's like about going home to the people you love and maybe missing the people you love. And maybe that's what the
Right.
verses are about. I don't know. We'll dig into the verses, but like into the actual words. But yeah, I like that celebratory. And the sound itself, it's very electronic, which I mentioned earlier, which again was a little jarring to me at first. I will keep admitting. As far as I know, there's no official drums or a bass guitar on this song. So the only traditional instruments are guitar and keyboards, but a lot of it's programming. You talked about you like sing-along type songs, clapping songs. Do you feel like this is like a sing-along song? Like if he busted this out in concert at the next Wilderness show, like is this a
Yes.
sing-along?
I would
Okay.
belt it out. I would scream my heart out. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, especially that bridge. Like it's just walking in my sleep, walking in my sleep. Like I would definitely. And then
Definitely easy to follow along. Like the whole
yeah,
audience could like get into it, even if the
even if they don't know the
person
song.
exactly that, even if they don't know, they could totally start singing it.
Definitely. I don't know. Maybe I'm just having flashbacks to seeing this one live, but I do like the way how it ends with a cappella again. Feels like I've been walking in my sleep. That bridge anyway, like feels like I've been
Yes.
walking in my sleep, and then the sleep part. I'm not going to attempt to sing it, but I avoid that at all costs on this show. I rarely do that. But I also enjoy how the intensity of the song quickly goes away at the end, and then we just get the same piano melody from the beginning. And I think that part is so special. It may be one of my favorite parts of the song. I'll come back there, but like that, you know what I mean? Like as it ends, as it kind of goes out, then you just get the piano again. That's the Andrew I love. It's just like bring
It's
me
like
back
a
to just.
satisfying, yeah.
So are you ready to talk lyrics?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So in this song, we get two verses and a repeated chorus. I'll let you start. Is there a line or a set of lines that are particularly special to you in this song?
If it's stuck in my head, because it does get stuck
Mm-hmm.
in your head.
Yeah.
I love the "You're My Silver Lining." I love
Mm-hmm.
that part. It's catchy. It's how he sings it. It's fun to sing. It's all the above. you know,
Yep.
I do love that part.
I'll never stop trying. You're my silver lining, even when I'm walking in my sleep.
It's
That is
so
good. Yeah.
good.
Mm-hmm. It helps. You mentioned her name earlier. We talk about Kelly a lot on the show. That it's so obvious. Like that theme is so prevalent in his music, which is great. It's awesome. I love the love story. That he's always looking to return to home, to return to Kelly. She's his silver lining. That's how I interpret it. Is that what you get when you hear "You're my silver lining"? Like it's the
Yeah,
person you love. Okay.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Also, what reminded me of to see the world in blinding color.
Hmm.
I know that you always talk about colors on the show.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna call that out too. Like I love when he mentions colors. I love the themes. I love the themes throughout Andrew's music.
It's very consistent.
He is consistent. Planet, stars, colors. I love that about his lyrics because I'm always looking for the themes that almost always come up in a song or two on an album that he releases. And one of them is color. So I like how in the first chorus or the first verse, he says, I'd give up everything to see the world in blinding color. Then at the end of the second verse, he says, when you feel the same sun coming into view and you see the world in blinding color. And so he changes the lyric just a little bit from him wanting to see to her, or the person he's referring to, seeing the world in blinding color. So I really appreciate that. I love that little switch, that little kind of perspective change. So the verses are great here. And again, made better by the his description of the song. But I'm going to go ahead and read through the verses if that's cool with you.
Yeah, that's fine.
So the song, after the sleep, even when I'm walking my sleep, he sings, "Ghosts on the corner, I used to think that's all we'd ever be. Come home to California. Hey, wild heart, I'd give up everything to see the world in blinding color." And when I read those lyrics, so that's verse 1, there is a sense of like something's missing. And that's why I get like the notion that, oh, maybe this is a sad song for a moment. Then when the chorus hits, I keep going back there to the crowded street where I could see you walking in my sleep. I'll never stop trying. You're my silver lining, even when I'm walking in my sleep. And the pace picks up. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what, I think it could feel like a sad song if it was a ballad and there was no beat. It was just all like Andrew on a piano and it stayed slow that whole time. I could see it interpreted that way. The second verse goes on to say, "This is me in a bedroom, broken windows, sunlight coming through. This is you, shotgun on a highway, when you feel that same sun coming into view and you see the world in blinding color." Great verses. I love the poetry. It is, I just imagine this picture of Andrew waking up, wishing he was home, waking up on tour. Like he's in this generic hotel room. The sun is coming into the windows, and he's like loving being on tour, but at the same time waiting for the tour to be over so he can
Go back home.
Yeah, go back home, be with Kelly, be with his baby, just be home. Wherever your home is, sometimes you just need to be home.
Right.
So
it's a comfort, like we said earlier.
Yeah. And then the bridge, honestly, not my favorite part of the song, but I like the sing-songiness and how, come on, wake me up, feels like I've been walking in my sleep, and it repeats. I could see why that would be someone's favorite part of the song, especially because it like builds that energy back up and into the final chorus. So it's kind of a fun part, and I could imagine if I had a good concert memory, I could imagine that being a fun part of the concert. I'm going to imagine it is. So.
Yeah, I was about to say the bridge is more of like a clapping part of the song.
Uh-huh.
And then I love when he whispers, "Even when I'm walking in my," and then it goes back up and sleep. That's so fun.
That part is actually really cool. And I think I even made note of that. That's kind of a powerful pop music type of thing. Like you come on, wake me up, and then you go low, and then bam, you hit back with the beat. That's a good one. Do you have a favorite part of the song, either lyrically or otherwise?
Like I said, just that whisper part.
That is your favorite part?
I do love that part, but I still love the silver lining. Like,
yeah,
it will get stuck in my head. It's that verse always, because I was singing it before we even set this up. I was like, maybe like a month, and it was like kept going in my head. I was like, oh, even when I walk in, you're my silver lining.
Yeah,
so big.
My favorite part is honestly the verses, but I think it speaks so much, that fact speaks so much to like what I love about Andrew music. I love the poetry, and I like when it's him and a piano. Not always, but like that's my sweet spot with Andrew, is like when it's broken down and everything else fades away and it's like him on a piano. I was like, and that's what the verses do for me here. So when he's singing those verses, and then the outro too, like the when it fades out, like I mentioned this earlier, and it's just piano, it comes back and it reminds me of the verses. So I think that's why I love that part so much. So sometimes it's the chorus, but for this song, it's definitely the verses that do it for me. There's a little bit more of a beat in the second verse, but that's cool too. But I definitely like the piano. Let's talk other versions. So there's a piano-only version from YouTube from 2017. And anybody listening is probably being like, oh, here he goes. Like, he's going to say that version is better. And I am going to say I like it better. I like the Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness era. And I like all the albums. Some songs better than others, of course. But if they all had a Canyons version, that would make me a happy man. Are you familiar with the Canyons versions of those songs from the
I am.
self-titled album?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Oh,
love
I
that
love those.
album.
It makes me think every time of like him playing a piano in the dark and like there's just candles everywhere. That's what those songs remind me of. And he did it. He's done like a Smoke and Ribbons version, piano only version, and I love that. And he's done a off the new album, and he
Sure.
did Last Rites on Camp Holderness only in that way too. And that was just
Oh.
yeah, amazing. In addition to the regular versions as well. And then the other version I want to point out, and did you know this was featured in The Sims
I
4?
had no idea, but
It's
I
funny,
busted out laughing when I heard this song. I
hilarious.
was like, I can't believe this is a thing.
Yeah. Like how did those do you wonder how those things come about? Like who called Andrew or called his people and how did that conversation come about?
They're
Like,
like, is this
oh,
okay?
yeah. And by the way, we're going to use your song and you're going to sing it in gibberish because Andrew Ware, who was a prior guest, he and I talked about the song Television by Jack's Mannequin, and and that got the Sims treatment as well. And I only know this because I found a Katy Perry video online a few years ago, and it actually had her singing gibberish to Last Friday Night. I think they actually sing gibberish over their own song
That's amazing.
for The Sims. And it was I would love to see that video of Andrew, by the way. I'll just put that out there. That would be
Uh,
that's a good like Camp Wilderness bonus right there. That would be a great video. That's a good question. I'm adding that to my questions. Did he
do it.
actually sing gibberish
It's
over
probably
the Sims
like
songs?
AI or something. It's probably like they just modified his voice, you know?
Yeah, that would be how they do it now. Like that would be so easy to
Sure.
computer make that in a computer.
This is
Um,
voices.
yeah, but yeah,
It's
I
funny because I looked at the comments after I listened to it and it said Steve and I was like, oh, when he's singing Sleep, it's Steve on
oh
the
my gosh, I
Sims
forgot about it.
version.
Was it really?
I
He
don't
says
know if
Steve.
like that's what it sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah,
I just
oh
started
my gosh.
laughing. I was like, oh, how appropriate.
Yeah, thanks for the shout out, Andrew. I appreciate that. I know you had no idea who I was back in 2017, but that's cool.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take the call out. That was funny. I love finding things like that. That's a lot of fun to find these gibberish versions of these songs. So
It was so weird, but I loved it.
maybe I should put that on my family mix that I mentioned earlier. That's,
For sure.
gibberish versions of Andrew songs. That would really throw my family off.
Your wife will love it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She'll, no, she'd be like, yeah, this is expected of this guy. So she's just used to it at this point. Um, so far, I've talked about two of my favorite songs from Zombies on Broadway on this show, and I've talked about, believe it or not, my least favorite song on this show. But I would say this song, it kind of ranks right in the middle. It's like middle of the pack for me on Zombies on Broadway. Like, I like it when I hear it. Like you, I'm like, I hear that Sleep, and I'm like, oh yeah, we're in it now. So, I have a few songs I like a little bit better than this one. So, where does this one rank for you? I know you said like I covered a lot of your favorites already, but this is a good one too. So, where is this one in the catalog for you? Is this something you go to? You go back to?
Not really.
Okay.
Just because that's not what, when I think of Andrew, that's not what I think of, you know?
Uh huh.
I was like, there's a bunch of classics that I love instead. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm like you, it's like very in the middle, maybe towards the bottom, but like
Mm-hmm.
it's not the worst, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
the best. Like I do love this song, don't get me wrong.
Well, yeah, I've said this before on when I've talked about like the perfect Andrew McMahon albums. I'm like, maybe this isn't, this is near the bottom, but on a perfect album, what the heck? Like,
Yeah.
and same on a good album, not a perfect album, but on a good album, it's pretty good if it's like number 7 or 8, like still pretty good.
Like I'll be happy if he plays it live, but if he doesn't, that's okay. Like I won't be upset about it, you know?
Yeah, same. I'd be curious now that we've talked about it to see it live again, whereas I wasn't clamoring at all for it prior to this episode, to be honest. Did you hear any of the singles that came out for Tilt to the Wind No More, like
Yeah.
VHS or Skywriting?
Yeah. So I listened to Skywriting, The Hood of My Car, The Smoking Ribbons. Like I
Hmm.
love all those songs. Those are great.
Yeah,
I just haven't got around to getting it yet.
the whole album.
Right.
What are your thoughts when I mentioned it earlier, like Zombies on Broadway and Tilt to the Wind No More maybe being kindred spirits, at least in sound? Do you hear that at all when you hear some of those songs that you mentioned?
Maybe the hood of your car,
Mm-hmm.
maybe just because it's such like a cool vibe. I kind of have the same feeling with zombies.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not as rushed, but definitely that cool vibe that he
Yeah.
has, if that makes any sense.
It does, yeah. No, it does. Yeah, I get some of the same like sounds that I didn't hear on other Andrew McMahon albums, and that's why I kind of put these two in the same bucket, if you will. And I think my brain just tends to do that for better or for worse, just like wanna categorize songs and artists and albums and
I can see it with like smoking ribbons. Like I understand what
mhm,
you're saying with that.
mhm.
Like if I didn't know any better, like smoking ribbons could be on zombies, you know?
I completely agree. It could have been a closer for Zombies on Broadway looking back, actually. What other artists? So you said you're open to pop music and it sounds like you were into pop punk back in the day. So like what are your other favorite artists?
I love Hanson. That's my absolute favorite.
Okay.
Ever since I was what 8 years old, I love
Are
Hanson.
you original to Mbop then? Like was
Yeah,
that the first thing you heard? Okay.
yep.
Like the rest of the world, right?
Like the rest of the world. Yep. In
That's how we were
'97,
introduced. Oh yeah, I remember.
my first concert was in '98. I was 10 years old. It was great.
It was Hanson, your
It
first
was
concert?
Hanson. Yep.
Oh my gosh, and you're still a fan to this day.
Yep.
Now, do you still go see them when
Yep.
they tour? Do they tour? I don't know if they tour
They
still.
still tour.
Yeah.
So they have a member event every year in Jamaica. It's called Back to the Islands. I've been there for the past 4 years.
Oh
So
my gosh. Oh, you're a serious fan. That's serious.
they're the only one that go international for. Yeah.
That's like when I tell people I'm going on an Andrew cruise this fall.
I'm
That
so
is the
jealous.
equivalent. It's like if you go on a cruise for an artist or you leave the country for an artist, you're a pretty serious fan.
Well, I did that for Kohi and Cambria as well. Because I
Oh,
went,
they have a.
yeah, so I went on SS Never Ender too.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
So I didn't go on the
Yep.
first one, but I went on the
Mm-hmm.
second one. And that was this past October. And that was a lot of fun. And I got to meet like Anthony Green, and that was a highlight.
Yeah.
And I met, Kohi and Cambria and Claudio's wife, Shawnee. I just love them. I just love them all.
That's a pretty diverse, like those three artists that we're talking about right
Oh,
now
yeah.
are a pretty diverse
I
array of
know.
artists.
I know.
Uh, Kind of shows your like, the whole spectrum, if you will. Because correct me if I'm wrong, Coheed and Cambria, like hard rock, metal, or
So you know how we were saying like how zombies is a totally different era
uh huh,
of Andrew.
yeah,
Same thing with Coheed and Cambria. They're called a progressive rock group because they
okay.
change their sounds like all the time.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
I mean, if you hear certain albums, you'd be like, oh yeah, this is vastly different from back then, you know.
Gotcha.
But they are considered a progressive rock group.
So they kind of run the gamut in genre as well. So they
Yeah.
kind of cover it all. All
Yeah,
right.
so like their most recent album is Faxes 2, and that's also kind of poppy. I'm absolutely in love with that album. I
Yeah.
freaking love it.
Cool.
But yeah, so I have a wide range of artists that I love. Like I love
Yeah.
Weezer, but I also love, In Flames. So it's
Mm-hmm.
totally different.
Yeah.
Like I do like some metal, but I'm more of like a pop punk emo person. So like
Mm-hmm.
I saw New Found Glory, but like the person that opened up for them was 4 Years Strong. I love 4 Years Strong now because for some reason I never heard of them until they opened up for New Found Glory.
Oh,
So
that's a band one of those many that I've mentioned that I've missed. I need to go back and listen to their stuff.
yeah, fantastic.
A lot of people who are into pop punk seem to be into 4 Year Strong. I'm like, okay, maybe they'd be for me too.
I think you would enjoy it, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So if you like New Found Glory and if you like
Oh yeah.
Bayside and Bench
Mm-hmm.
or all those bands, I know that you
Yep.
said it on the show before. I was like, oh my god, we'll be best friends.
Certainly. Oh yeah, we have a lot of music in common. Now
For
I
sure.
don't know much from Hanson.
That's okay.
I do have their Christmas album,
Which one?
the one that came out like 4 years ago. Not
Oh,
snowed
Finally It's
in.
Christmas. Also a good one.
yeah, I liked how diverse it was. It was like very different from like the typical
Joy
Christmas
to the
music, if you
Mountain
will.
is chef's kiss. It's so good.
It's cool. We have that on our family Christmas playlist. So, but I've never listened to Coheed. Maybe it's time I give them a shot. And 4 Year Strong, that's a good suggestion. So I'll add that to the list. So this was such a great time. So thank you so much, Betsy, for coming on.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I had so much fun.
I'm actually really glad we chose a song that neither of us are like. It's not the top of the list. It's just like, yeah, it's a good song. There's great things about it. Like there is, you could find great things about any Andrew song. But I like that we could kind of like be honest and talk about the things that we like about it, and just be like, but yeah, like there's better Andrew songs, but this is a cool one. Like when it comes on, there's some great things about it. So,
For sure.
and thank you for letting me pick the song. I
Of
like
course.
never picked the song, so it was like
Well,
that
there
was
you
cool.
go.
For everyone listening, I want to thank you for listening as always. Make sure to rate the show on Spotify and Apple because that helps more people find it. Also, comment on the socials. Like, I love when people comment on Instagram. That's so much fun. I love talking music. It's completely obvious with Betsy and everyone else who's been on the show. So hit me up. Let's talk music. Just like always, big thank you to Betsy for being on the show. This was awesome. As for the rest of you, I'll never stop trying. You're my silver lining, even when I'm walking in my sleep.